Hi, I'm Roger Cervo, Industry Practice Leader at WTW for construction for the Canadian region. I'm here with Manuela Spyrka, my head of broking nationally for the construction region at WTW Canada. And we're here to chat with you a bit about the construction sector in Canada and the insurance marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to kick it off by just kind of giving a bit of a high-level overview of what the construction industry is currently experiencing, much like elsewhere in the world, right, Roger? I mean, supply chain, labor issues, aging workforce, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're experiencing up in Canada. And it's having big impacts. Our projects are getting bigger. So the scale of these large projects, is having an impact when we're looking at performance risk, when we're looking at, placement of the coverage from a length of the policy term standpoint. So there's so many different angles that we're seeing, impacts coming at us.
Yeah, I think there's a correlation between the shortage of skilled labor and then from an insurance placement standpoint, a shortage and differentiation of information to get the insurance coverage and transfer the risks with the underwriters. Much like it's a tight construction in the sector, it's tight and there's a fight for labor, there's a fight for good risks in the insurance marketplace right now too. So 100%. Differentiation is a major factor in that regard as well.
Separating yourself when you see projects, when underwriters see projects coming in, separating yourself, as best in class and how to put that in front of them. And that comes down to a really good, wholesome submission. And we talk to our teams, whether they're owners that are coming to us in construction saying, we've got a project coming up, really having that dialogue early on, whether it's from the contract standpoint, how do you pass that on? And we have a lot of US owners that are coming up and doing big projects, in all different kinds of industries. And so having that ongoing, from the start, conversation around contract management, because the Canadian contracts are different, even just from a workers' compensation standpoint, employer's liability standpoint. We don't have to worry as much in Canada about those, but just giving them, almost like a Canadian 101 insurance, high-level overview.
It's part of the risk kind of identification process, and then, collection of information, working with them on their risk management and their risk transfer mechanisms, working closely with them, and then making sure we represent it in the marketplace in the best way possible to get the best results. That goes across the board, but certainly Canada, US, we see a lot of that coming in right now with investments and projects in Canada from our US teams.
No, it's pretty exciting to see a lot of these projects coming up, but just managing, the Canadian marketplace. I mean, we've got lots of great support on the builder's risk side. There's still available capacity here, good available capacity. We lean on our London colleagues, whether that is on the builder's risk side or on the wrap-up liability side from a project standpoint. They've been great partners. And so, accessing capital is still good in Canada. The only sort of area from a construction standpoint is residential construction, where from a wrap-up standpoint, because of the legacy water damage claims that we've seen in the Canadian marketplace. So,
and the completed operations down the road. It's a long tail, so it's a more challenging risk. It's not to say it's not doable, and that's why we access London and other sort of geographics. There's really no geography we wouldn't look to try and get the best terms and conditions. So
maybe if we can touch a little bit on why you need us in Canada. What is the regulatory? Well,
Canada's a very specific sort of regulatory community, if you will, or has a very strict set of laws as it relates to insurance and how it's placed. And for incoming business coming from another geographic, Canada has very strict and clear regulations in that regard, where a licensed broker and a licensed insurer needs to be involved in the placement of insurance, or you could run into tax and fines and penalties, which again, open eyes, if you want to do that, you could, but best practice would dictate that you engage a local broker, engage a licensed insurer that's backed, federally backed and has the right solvency and the right funds to pay claims. And that's why it's there. So it's just a matter of reaching out and making sure that you follow the right steps when you're coming into place the insurance.
No, that's a great point. I think a little bit about how specific, I mean, we've touched on residential, you know, another area that's pretty in distress at the moment in Canada, much like probably the US as well, is the frame market.
Yeah, wood frame, it's a challenge.
It's been a challenge, and actually to tie that in, you know, CLT, I mean, we do have projects that are more and more being looked at by using CLT mass timber.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely the green thing, and yet it's often misunderstood by the markets,
Yeah.
and differentiating it from wood frame is also a challenge.
That's right.
There just isn't a one standard right now, so we're really going into a new area and trying to break ground with underwriters to get them to give them the rewards and the credits that CLT deserves versus frame. It's going to be a process, but you know, we're always on the front end of that, trying to advocate on behalf of our clients to try and get the best terms possible. So.
Well, it's not just you know, when we look at advocating, you know, it's really tying in our global construction network, understanding, you know, how are markets treating CLT
in different
geographies, you know, and learning how they've been able to get that message out. So
sharing
that's
that information, it's a good point. And that's where the network kind of comes through for us, right? So we have best practices across the board, truly across the board, not just in our region, or, you know, regionally or nationally. It's actually internationally and globally.
Yeah.
So
when it's kind of a perfect segue into why we're actually sitting here right now, because we're at the Plano WTW Construction Conference, along with our U.S. counterparts. We've got our Canadian clients here, you know, and they want to see the Canadian content. And so for us to be part of, you know, the team and to be seen part of the team visibly at this conference is really, really important. And
well, they're highlighting the fact that we're different. It is different up there, and they want their clients to understand that if they're engaging in business in Canada, to reach out to us in support and to make sure it's done in, you know, in a best practice manner across the board. So they've given us that opportunity and put us right at the front of the table for that, and it's been a great opportunity. And it's great for us to learn kind of what's going on down south in terms of volume and scale, and sharing that with our clients in Canada and also our colleagues. So
that's it's been really incredible actually to be here. I mean, we've had some really interesting presentations so far. Would love to take that into the Canadian marketplace. I mean, we heard another WTW colleague talking about climate change. Yes. How is that impacting construction? So just, you know, the
cyber and the Internet of Things is big too, as well, and how we deal with that. And
100%, right? Yeah. So I think for us, it's, you know, how do we take that message into Canada? How do we educate the construction industry, whether it's contractors or trades, or even, you know, our architects and engineering firms that, you know, we support in all of their operations and services. And so
how are they dealing with issues and risks?
Really, really great resources within not only the conference, but globally within the construction group. So it's been wonderful, actually.
Yeah, it's been a good few days.
Yeah. Just to be more aware of your liability, your policies and procedures, your, you know, everything from impacting the bottom line. You know, I mean, there was talk about D&O claims and EPL claims coming out of these climate discussions. And, you know, we typically see the US being the front runner in litigations and in claims. And I think we're going to see some of that in Canada as well. And so, you know, having the forethought around, well, how do we do things differently while, you know, still doing what we do, constructing, building, and everything else. But, you know, that climate piece is going to be building with the right materials. I mean, that was one of the things, you know, as a contractor, can you or should you recommend the use of more and better climate resistant materials, right? Even though the owner or the designer said, no, we're going to use, you know, X, Y, Z instead. But just even making that recommendation to the owner is almost like, well, you've done your piece, right? And just getting that level of, you know, feedback and what you should do and what you could do to sort of mitigate your own liabilities?
Yeah, and I think utilize the tools. There's data there. Your underwriters have data on climate change. They have geotagging. They can pinpoint an area. They can pinpoint based on historical rainfalls and sort of emerging weather patterns. We have them as well as a broker. Underwriters have them. Lean on them. Ask for them. They're there. The resources are there. Underwriters are looking into it. They have actuarial analysis. They have this data. You need to push and request for it so you can make better informed decisions and data-driven decisions. Climate change is real. We have a client in Nova Scotia, in the Maritimes, and we've set them up on an early warning system. I've had 4 or 5 alerts because that tropical storm has moved its way up the East Coast. Never in the past has that happened. So it's real. It's changing. It's evolving, and lean on the resources you have and use the data. I would say ask for and use the data. Yeah.